Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right in today because we are unpacking a really powerful narrative of resilience. We're looking at the story of a widowed mother, Savitri, her 4 daughters, and how they fought back against what looked like totally insurmountable odds. So let's dive into it. Dreams only come true if you wake up and work for them. Now, these words were spoken by Jumki, who's one of the 4 sisters we're analyzing today. And honestly, they perfectly establish the core of this entire narrative. You see, this isn't some fairy tale about waiting for a savior to swoop in. It's about waking up, facing some incredibly harsh realities, and putting in the relentless work it takes to actually change your circumstances. Section 1. A leaky roof and dreams. The initial struggle. Okay, to truly appreciate the sisters' eventual triumph, we first have to understand the sheer depth of their initial struggle. Their daily reality was, frankly, incredibly harsh. They lived in this old hut with a roof that leaked violently every single time a storm rolled in. But, the structural damage to their home was just the tip of the iceberg. The youngest sister, Payal, was getting scolded at school because her shoes were completely torn, but the family simply couldn't afford a new pair. And why was that? Because absolutely every single rupee was already spoken for. Their mother, Savitri, had mounting medical bills, there were past dues at the local shop, and basic utilities like milk and electricity drained whatever little they had left. Despite all 4 of the older girls and their mother working incredibly long hours in various odd jobs, they were just trapped in this vicious cycle of poverty, earning minimal pay that literally never stretched far enough to cover their most basic human needs. Section 2. Discovering their unique talents. Active problem solving. So how do you break a cycle like that? Well, the family's massive paradigm shift began with Mira, the eldest sister. She had this realization that working day and night for other people was just never going to be enough. They needed a fundamental structural change. You see, each sister actually possessed a distinct, highly marketable skill. Mira was working at a government school, sure, but her true talent was dance. Radha was absolutely exhausted working at a stitching factory, but she was a master tailor. Jumki was cleaning at a local food stall, a dhaba, but she was a fiercely passionate actress. And young Payal? She had a breathtakingly sweet singing voice. Mira's brilliant realization was basically, why are we giving our talents away to employers who barely pay us? Why not combine these skills? And right there, sitting in their broken, leaky hut, they made the choice to start their own teaching center, the Shikshan Kala Kendra. They completely transformed their disparate, underpaid labor into a unified, self-owned enterprise, a real game changer. Section 3. The first monster. Debt. A massive obstacle. But, of course, just as their teaching classes actually start gaining some traction, an angry man named Ramesh burst into their home uncovering a long-kept secret. To ensure her daughters could get an education, Savitri had made a completely heartbreaking sacrifice. She had borrowed money from Ramesh, who was a local loan shark, and the collateral? The deed to their very hut. Now, Savitri hid this from the girls to protect them from the stress, but now the chickens had absolutely come home to roost. The very foundation of their brand new business, their home, was in immediate jeopardy. Ramesh issues a devastating ultimatum. They must pay him 50,000 rupees in exactly 1 month, or they face the streets. Now, to put that into perspective for a second, for a family that literally could not afford school shoes just days prior, 50,000 rupees might as well be $1 million. You can imagine the silence in that hut that night. It must have been deafening. But remember Jumki's quote from the beginning? They didn't just sit around and cry. Jumki ends up spotting a poster for a citywide talent show, and the first prize is exactly 50,000 rupees. The path to victory from there was grueling. They relentlessly practiced their skills. Mira danced for hours on end, Radha stitched dazzling stage costumes from scratch, Jumki rehearsed dramatic monologues, and Payal refined her vocals. And when they finally hit that stage, with Ramesh actually sitting smugly in the audience expecting them to fail, they were undeniable. Their combined talents created pure magic, literally moving the audience to tears. They won the entire competition, secured the check, and bought their freedom right back from Ramesh. Section 4. The second monster. Displacement. If we map this out, the rapid roller coaster sequence of events these sisters endured is kind of crazy. They open the center, Ramesh drops his ultimatum, they achieve this miraculous victory, and finally, they get a moment of peace. But within days, the bottom falls out all over again. A wealthy real estate tycoon swoops in and buys the land their community sits on, entirely shattering their hard-won stability with a structural force far larger than any local loan shark. Which brings us to a really critical definition for this story, the Basti. This is the neighborhood, the slum community where the sisters and their neighbors live. This tycoon plans to demolish all the shanties in the Basti just to build a shiny new shopping mall. So this drastically elevates the stakes of our entire explainer today. This is no longer just about four sisters trying to save their own leaky roof. This is an existential threat to their entire community, their neighbors, and the very children they have just started teaching. They stood up for their own house once. Now they realize they have to stand up for the entire Basti. Section 5. The Power of Unity, the Triumphant Climax. The four sisters literally march right into the wealthy businessman's office. He tries to offer them handsome compensation to just leave quietly. But his attempt to buy them out brilliantly illustrates their growth. They look at him and say, "I am denying selling my house even if you bring truckloads of cash for that. This is our home." This single act of fearless defiance is the spark. It spreads like wildfire back in the Basti. Inspired by the sisters' incredible courage, one by one, every single family in the slum rallies behind them, flat out refusing to sell. Faced with an entirely united community, the businessman is forced to give up. The community wins the battle. Looking back, their transformation over just 3 months was staggering. It's night and day. Before, they were exhausted, working for other people, terrified of the rain. Now, they're completely self-sufficient, running their own highly successful classes. Mira teaches academics, Radha runs the tailoring classes, Jumki directs plays, and Payal is out there singing on the radio. But honestly, more importantly, they evolved from victims of circumstance into fearless leaders of their community. True independence didn't just come from winning some talent show. It came from recognizing their own inherent worth and absolutely refusing to back down. Which brings us to the most important part of this explainer: what this all actually means for you. The sisters quite literally used what they already had inside them to change their entire world. So, as we wrap things up today, I want to leave you with this question to think about. What hidden talents could you use to change yours? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.